Okay, we're going to talk about immunity. So basically, everyone has immunity, and we acquire immunity through different ways. So we have immunity that is nonspecific, and nonspecific immunity is physical barriers. So your skin is a physical barrier. Mucus production, the goop that's in your nose, that is also a nonspecific type of immunity, as well as inflammation. We get fever, fever helps to stimulate our immune system to help kill the virus or the bacteria that's in our body. And then we have phagocytosis, which is your cells that eat the microorganisms that have infiltrated your body. And then we have specific immunity. And basically, specific immunity is a particular antigen. So what happens with specific immunity is when our body is introduced to a specific antigen, T and B cells react, and then we produce something called memory. So our body remembers what that is, or an animal's body remembers what that is, and then they know how to respond. The body knows how to respond, and hopefully they don't become as sick. So we have T cells, and basically T cells is cell-mediated attack, and this is what happens intracellular in the cells, okay? When your T cells are activated or you're trying to stimulate the T cells, it takes about 6 days for optimal protection. Then we have B cells. This is also called humoral immunity. And basically what this is it's antibody mediated. So your body produces antibodies that react to different antigens. Okay. This takes about 14 days of immunity, but this is a more longer lasting immunity. So specific cell is, or B cells, which is antibody mediated, takes about 14 days for optimal protection. This is extracellular. So this is outside of the cells, trying to fight off the virus outside of the cells before it becomes cellular. So Mr. T is attack and Mrs. B must produce. So we also have some different types of immunity. Passive immunity, this is immunity that comes from another. So moms that have puppies, through giving colostrum, they provide natural immunity to some diseases. Another way we could have passive immunity would be from a donor animal to another. This would be artificial immunity. Okay. The problem with passive immunity is it tends to be short-acting because it doesn't really stimulate our T cells and our B cells. It doesn't produce that memory. Okay. Active immunity, this is stimulated from the antigens, and it activates those T and B cells, so you get the production of antibodies. It does take longer for you to develop active immunity, but it creates memory. So it's longer acting. So we have parvovirus in a dog. So a dog that gets parvovirus, it becomes active immunity if they survive, and that would be considered natural immunity. Okay, so they're sad because they don't feel well. But we can give a parvo vaccine, and this would be artificial immunity. Okay, longer acting, it activates these T and B cells, but if they get exposed to the parvo vaccine, hopefully their body knows what to do so they don't get the illness. So maternal antibodies. Well, we talked about passive immunity in moms. The problem with maternal antibodies is that when the animal gets that passive immunity from the colostrum, it does provide resistance from disease in their early weeks, but it doesn't continue. It declines at about 6 to 9 weeks. Okay. The problem is that about 6 to 9 weeks is when we start to vaccinate. And these maternal-derived antibodies can actually hinder vaccination. So this is why we have to booster puppy and kitten vaccines. So this is a scale here. This would be memory. This is in the plasma. So here at 0 weeks, 10 weeks. Okay, so at 0 weeks they have a lot of maternally derived antibodies because they have colostrum through the first 4 days. Okay, and then it tapers down. So we give our first vaccine, say at 6 weeks. Okay. okay, still has not passed over those maternal antibodies. So that's why we booster again, okay, and then a third time. So the reason why we vaccinate is because we want to provide long-lasting immunity. We want them to be healthy. Okay? We want to produce memory in those T and B cells because that's what's going to help their immune system fight off the disease in the future. We also can give them a controlled exposure. We know what we're giving them, so we kind of know what to expect. It is relatively inexpensive to vaccinate. It is more expensive to treat for the disease than it is to give the preventative vaccine. And the thing we have to remember about vaccines is basically they're biological frauds. We're fooling the body into thinking that it actually has the disease. So we produce that immunity without producing the disease.